Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something straight. You are not late. You're not behind. You're not too old. You're not too young. You're scared. And that's okay. But let's stop lying to ourselves. Most people say, it's too late for me. No. What they really mean is, what if I try and fail? Fear is loud. It whispers things like, the market is saturated. It's already been done. People will judge you. You don't have enough money. You don't have the right degree. But here's the truth. None of that is stopping you. Fear is. You scroll through social media and see someone younger winning. You see someone from your city making money online. You see someone building a brand from their bedroom. And instead of saying, if they can, I can, you say, I missed my chance. No, you didn't. You just don't want to look stupid starting at zero. Let me tell you something powerful. Starting at zero is the game. That's where every winner began. Nobody posts the years of awkward videos. Nobody posts the failed businesses. Nobody posts the nights of doubt. But that's the real story. You think confidence comes first. It doesn't. Action comes first. Confidence is a byproduct of doing. If you wait to feel ready, you'll wait forever. You say you want to start a YouTube channel, but you're worried about views. You say you want to start a business, but you're worried about what relatives will say. You say you want to follow your passion, but you're worried about security. Let me flip this for you. Most people walk around believing they are behind in life. They look at friends who are earning more, building businesses, getting married, traveling the world, or going viral online, and they quietly tell themselves, I'm late. But the truth is much simpler and much harder to admit. You are not behind. You are hesitating. Hesitation is powerful because it feels logical. It sounds responsible. It tells you to wait for the perfect time, the right money, the better idea, the stronger plan. It convinces you that preparation is productivity. But deep down, what's really happening is fear is slowing you down. Not lack of opportunity, not lack of ability, not lack of time. When you say you're behind, what you're really saying is, I don't want to start at zero. You don't want to feel small. You don't want to look inexperienced. You don't want to risk failing publicly. So instead of taking action, you analyze. You overthink. You research. You plan. And while you're planning, someone else who knows less than you but acts faster is learning through action. Being behind is often just a comparison problem. You're measuring your beginning against someone else's middle. You're comparing your private doubts to someone else's public highlight reel. Of course it feels like you're late when you only see finished products and polished success. What you don't see are the years of confusion, rejection, and uncertainty that came before it. Hesitation creates the illusion of safety. It tells you that if you don't start, you can't fail. But it also guarantees something worse: you can't grow. Growth only happens in motion. Clarity only comes from doing. Confidence is built from repetition, not reflection. The uncomfortable truth is that many people would rather protect their ego than chase their potential. Saying I'm late is easier than saying I'm scared. Because if you admit you're scared, then you have to confront it. You have to act anyway. You have to risk looking average before you become exceptional. There is no universal timeline for success. Life is not a race with fixed checkpoints. Some people start businesses at 18, others start at 45, some discover their passion early, others find it after years of trial and error. The only real delay happens when you refuse to move. Momentum doesn't require perfection. It requires decision. The moment you stop labeling yourself as behind and start recognizing that you're simply hesitating, everything shifts. You move from victim mindset to ownership. And ownership is power. Fear is clever. It rarely shows up and says, I'm afraid. Instead, it disguises itself as logic. It sounds like timing. It sounds like strategy. It sounds like responsibility. You tell yourself, now isn't the right time. The market is too crowded. I need more experience. I'll start next year. But if you strip away the excuses, what's underneath is fear. Fear loves the word later. Later feels safe. Later feels controlled. Later gives you the illusion that you're still in the game without actually stepping into the arena. You convince yourself that you're being patient, when in reality you're postponing discomfort. You're not waiting for the right time. You're waiting to feel safe. Timing is one of the most common masks fear wears. You look at your bank account and say it's not enough. You look at your skills and say they're not polished. You look at your age and say you're too young or too old. But there will always be a reason to delay. There will always be uncertainty. There will always be risk. Perfect timing is a myth created by people who don't want to move. The truth is, no one feels fully ready. The people you admire didn't wait for perfect conditions. They started when it was uncomfortable. They launched when it was messy. They acted when they still had doubts. What separates them isn't better timing. It's a higher tolerance for uncertainty. Fear also disguises itself as over-planning. You research endlessly. You watch tutorials. You take courses. You gather information. On the surface, it looks productive. But at some point, preparation becomes procrastination. You're not learning to execute. You're learning to avoid. Another way fear hides is in comparison. You see others succeeding and tell yourself the opportunity window has closed. I should have started 5 years ago. It's too competitive now. But opportunity doesn't expire just because others are participating. In fact, competition often proves there is demand. Fear twists that signal and turns it into discouragement. If you're honest with yourself, most of the reasons you haven't started are emotional, not practical. You're afraid of judgment, afraid of failure, afraid of wasting time, afraid of proving your doubters right. So you call it bad timing instead of calling it fear. The moment you recognize that timing is often a story you're telling yourself, you take your power back. You stop waiting for certainty and start embracing action, because action creates clarity. Action builds skill. Action reduces fear. Waiting does the opposite. There is no perfect moment where everything aligns and fear disappears. The right time is usually inconvenient. It's imperfect. It's uncomfortable. And that's exactly why it works. Comparison is silent, but it's deadly. It doesn't scream at you. It whispers. It shows you someone else's success and quietly asks, why not you? At first, that question can be motivating, but if you're not careful, it turns toxic. Instead of inspiring action, it creates insecurity. You scroll for 5 minutes and see people your age buying houses, launching brands, traveling the world, getting in shape, speaking on stages. You don't see their struggles. You don't see their debt, their doubts, their sleepless nights. You see the highlight. And then you compare it to your behind-the-scenes reality. That's not a fair comparison. The problem isn't that others are winning. The problem is that you're measuring your progress against a timeline that was never meant for you. Everyone starts from a different place, different resources, different upbringing, different networks, different opportunities. When you ignore that and compare outcomes only, you create unnecessary pressure. Comparison kills confidence because it shifts your focus outward. Instead of asking, how can I improve? You start asking, why am I not as good? That subtle shift changes everything. Improvement is empowering. Self-judgment is paralyzing. When you constantly compare, you begin to doubt your path. You second-guess your pace. You question your uniqueness. You might even abandon ideas that were meaningful to you just because someone else is doing something similar at a higher level. But that's how originality dies. You trade your journey for someone else's blueprint. The reality is there will always be someone ahead of you, always someone richer, smarter, more experienced, more talented. If your motivation depends on being the best in the room, you will constantly feel inadequate. But if your motivation depends on being better than you were yesterday, you stay in control. Comparison also creates urgency in the wrong direction. You rush decisions because you feel behind. You chase trends instead of building foundations. You pursue what's popular instead of what's aligned with your strengths. That's how people burn out. They're running someone else's race at someone else's speed. The only productive comparison is with your past self. Are you more skilled than last year, more disciplined than last month, more courageous than yesterday? That's the scoreboard that matters. Growth is personal. Progress is individual. There is no universal schedule for achievement. When you stop comparing and start focusing on execution, something powerful happens. You gain clarity. You regain confidence. You move at your natural pace. And ironically, that's when progress accelerates. Not because you're obsessing over others, but because you're committed to your own lane. Your journey doesn't need validation from someone else's timeline. It needs consistency from you. Most people are waiting to feel confident before they take action. They think confidence is the starting point. They believe once they feel ready, bold, and certain, then they'll move. But that's not how it works. Confidence is not the cause of action. It's the result of it. When you first try anything new, you will feel unsure. That's normal, whether it's starting a business, launching a YouTube channel, going to the gym, or speaking in public. The first attempt is always uncomfortable. You won't feel like an expert. You won't feel fully prepared. And that discomfort tricks you into thinking you're not ready. But nobody starts ready. Confidence is built through evidence. And evidence only comes from doing. The first time you post content, it feels awkward. The second time, slightly less. After the 20th time, you don't even think about it. What changed? Not your talent overnight, not your intelligence, your repetition. Action creates proof. Every time you execute, you collect small wins. Maybe the video gets 10 views. Maybe one person supports your idea. Maybe you complete one workout. Those small wins stack up. And slowly, your brain starts to believe, I can do this. That belief is confidence. If you wait to feel confident first, you trap yourself in a loop. You don't act because you lack confidence. And you lack confidence because you don't act. The only way to break that cycle is to move while doubting yourself. Think about any skill you admire. Public speaking, coding, selling, designing, leading. No one was born confident in those areas. They were beginners. They made mistakes. They embarrassed themselves, but they kept showing up. Over time, their fear decreased because familiarity increased. Action reduces fear because it replaces imagination with experience. When you haven't started, your mind creates worst-case scenarios. What if I fail? What if people laugh? What if I'm not good enough? But once you try, you realize most fears are exaggerated. Even if you fail, you survive. And that realization builds strength. Perfectionism is often just fear in disguise. You want everything polished before you begin. But polish comes from practice, not planning. The messy version you create today is the foundation for the improved version tomorrow. The people who appear confident aren't fearless. They've just taken more action than you have. They've built a larger stack of evidence supporting their ability. Confidence is earned through movement, not meditation. You don't need to feel brave to begin. You need to begin to feel brave. Every step forward, no matter how small, strengthens your belief in yourself. And once that belief starts growing, momentum follows. Most people are addicted to the idea of one day. One day when the money is right. One day when the skills are better. One day when the fear disappears. One day when everything feels aligned. But that day rarely comes, because ready is not a feeling you discover, it's a state you grow into. Starting before you feel ready is uncomfortable. It challenges your ego. It forces you to be seen as a beginner. And nobody likes being a beginner. You want to look competent. You want to impress people. You want your first attempt to look like someone else's 100th. But growth doesn't work like that. When you wait to feel ready, what you're really waiting for is certainty. You want guarantees. You want proof that it will work. You want assurance that you won't fail. But every meaningful opportunity carries uncertainty. If it were guaranteed, everyone would do it. The truth is, clarity comes from action, not from thinking. You can plan for months and still not know how things will unfold. But the moment you take a step, reality starts giving you feedback. You learn what works. You learn what doesn't. You adjust. You improve. Movement creates information. Waiting creates doubt. Every successful person you admire once started unprepared. They didn't have the full roadmap. They didn't have all the answers. They figured things out by doing. They learned in public. They improved in real time. And yes, they made mistakes, but mistakes are tuition. They are part of the cost of growth. There will never be a perfect starting point. There will always be something missing. More knowledge, more resources, more confidence. If you make readiness the requirement, you give yourself a permanent excuse to delay. But if you make progress the requirement, you free yourself to begin. Starting small is powerful. You don't need to launch big. You don't need massive attention. You need momentum. One video, one post, one client, one workout, one idea executed. Small, consistent actions beat perfect plans that never leave your head. Fear doesn't disappear before you start. It fades after you prove to yourself that you can survive discomfort. Every time you act despite feeling unprepared, you strengthen your resilience. You build trust in yourself. You shift from dreaming to doing. You don't become ready and then start. You start and then become ready. The first version will not be your best. That's the point. Improvement requires a starting line. And the only way to reach your next level is to move before you feel qualified to stand there. You were never late. You were waiting for fear to disappear. But fear doesn't leave on its own. It leaves when you move. Stop blaming timing. Stop comparing your journey. Stop waiting to feel confident. Take action, even if your hands shake. Because the moment you decide to move despite the fear, that's the moment your real life begins. Thank you.